And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Monday and happy almost Halloween. What's going on, guys? We are here to review tonight's WWE Raw for October 30th, 2023. We had a Halloween-themed show tonight. Pretty fun trick-or-street match between Chelsea Green and Natalya tonight as well. I thought tonight's Monday Night Raw was decent, not great, maybe a little bit better than last week. I might trust some of your grades more than mine because I was doing a lot of other things during Raw, trying my best to pay attention to it. But from what I could tell, it was a pretty fun show. Opened up hot, had some decent matches throughout, and a really good tag match with the Creed brothers debuting on Raw, taking on Alpha Academy. So I thought overall the show was pretty good, pretty fun Halloween episode, and I had really no issue with it. So let me know what you guys think in the chat. Welcome to your Raw review for this evening. Not sure what kind of an audience we're going to have tonight. It seemed like it was a quieter weekend in wrestling, but we have to come up here. I had to come up here and talk about AEW Collision because I haven't talked about the Kenny Omega and MJF match yet, and that was a match of the year candidate, show-stealing affair between those two guys, and wow, unreal. I got to see that match super late on Saturday night when I got home from work and was blown away by it. So I at least want to touch on that. We'll touch on a couple of pieces of news, wrestling news, but not a lot. We touched on and covered a lot of news on Saturday on the podcast and results. So just a few more things to discuss here in terms of those AEW creative frustrations that we heard about, along with information on Drew McIntyre's WWE contract and another unfortunate incident, or injury, I should say, for Bryan Danielson. Broken orbital bone is the word coming out of Dynamite. That's going to keep him out for the rest of the year and perhaps even put in jeopardy his match with Okada that we were hoping to see at Wrestle Kingdom. So poor Danielson cannot catch a break there. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about tonight's Raw and anything else in the chat that you guys want to get into this evening. I don't think this is going to be a very long review because I can already tell we're going to have a low audience tonight. So we'll get through this news, get through the results, and I will go ahead and get out of here. Pretty big week coming up on the channel as well. It is Crown Jewel week. So that means I'm going to be up here on Thursday afternoon, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be up here to predict the entire Crown Jewel card. We will also touch on the previous night's Dynamite. Looks like there's a pretty big Dynamite on tap for Wednesday, so we will discuss the results of Dynamite and predict Crown Jewel. And then on Saturday, I currently have the Crown Jewel review scheduled for Winged Eagle podcast time. So again, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific, we'll be up here to review WWE Crown Jewel. I'm giving myself an extra hour or two because I do live on the West Coast and I work very late in the restaurant. And I don't know if I'm going to be that alert at 10 o'clock in the morning to watch wrestling. So I'm going to give myself an extra hour just to make sure I see the whole show, catch the results, and I'm able to come up here and properly talk about it on Saturday afternoon. So you got 3 big podcasts coming this week from me. One mistake I made was advertising a watch-along for this Sunday. We're going to start our Survivor Series watch-alongs for the month of November. We talked about it last night when we were... Tito's messing around with my cords. Okay, just making sure. He likes to get in the cubby where I keep my power supply and stuff and making sure he's out of there. Made a mistake in last night's watch-along. We watched Halloween Havoc 1999. It was a blast. Thank you to everyone who was here. And I told you guys that this Sunday we were going to start our Survivor Series watch-alongs, but I completely forgot that it's my dad's 70th birthday, my stepdad, that is. So I'm going to be having dinner with my family on Sunday, and we are not going to be here for a watch-along after all. So I'm sorry about that, but we will pick that back up the following week, I think, as long as it's not Full Gear or whatever's going on there, and we will resume second week in November. So we will be off this coming Sunday. But the rest of the links for the week are already up on the channel. Thursday's predictions and Saturday's Crown Jewel review links are up now. So go ahead and get on over there and give those a save. And we'll be here this week talking about that stuff. Let me cruise to the chat. Say hello to those of you who are here. JJ Legg, the Juliet, Zach Palgett, Victor Cologne are the... Oh, whoa, what a low chat so far. Come on, bring some friends. Go call some people. Holy shit. Also good to see Barry. I'm sorry you keep missing these watch-alongs, dude. Big J is here as well. So is Jay Lambo. We got Sonic Plays, Doug Unfunny, and Denny Downbad. all hanging out. 7.5 out of 10 from JJ Leg. That's not a bad score. I would probably concur with that based on what I saw tonight. Certainly wasn't a boring show, and it was fun. I did like where they lifted up the pumpkin head, and it was Nikki Cross, standing there with that look on her face as she kind of made her return, her spooky return last week, and continued the spookiness this week on Raw. And overall, I thought it was kind of good. I'm not sure if I'm very excited about this apparent Miz babyface turn. I don't know how I feel about this. There's really nothing that the Miz does ever that I find interesting, and we've seen periods where he's tried to be a babyface before and nothing ever really clicked. I don't know what's going to make this any different. I think there are some people that are just better off being heels, and Miz is one of those guys because he's tremendous at it. He is absolutely tremendous at being a heel. I'm not sure how this next babyface run of his is going to go, but maybe with Triple H fully in charge of creative, maybe any mistakes they made with him in the past, they won't make this time, but I just don't think the Miz really has it. You know what I mean? He's better off just being a douchebag. That's how I prefer my Miz. I don't know about you guys. But like I said, overall, show was good. Like Jay Lambo says, Rollins and JD, that match was tremendous. The Alpha Academy and Creed Brothers match was awesome. And there was some not so great things too. We'll talk about the Candice LeRae thing, which just did not hit. But overall, I thought tonight was okay. And Sami Zayn opening up with a fiery ass promo, which I thought was tremendous. Joshua Aparicio, what's up, man? Thank you for being here. Good to see you as always. I am still waiting on the dream match of Dream Match because I think the Tribal Chief is afraid of the power of Tozawa. Roman Reigns versus Tozawa at WrestleMania. Roman better look out because the way Tozawa has been working out with those pink weights, if he keeps at that, I mean, he's really going to get big. He's probably going to surpass Brock Lesnar in size and probably Omos in strength if he keeps pumping those pink weights. Roman could be in trouble. Joshua, I'm with you, man. Oh, yeah, and it has been a while since you've popped in. Nice haircut. Thanks. Thank you so much. It's not really a haircut. I like to play around in the garage with hydrochloric acid, and this is the result. So always read your warning labels, boys and girls. But anyway, let's get into some wrestling news first, since we've already said hello and I've already told you guys what you can expect from me this week in terms of Crown Jewel and whatnot. We should talk about a little bit of wrestling news. First thing I want to talk about is AEW Collision this past Saturday. We did our Winged Eagle podcast just before Collision went live. We finished it up just like 2 minutes before they went live. So we talked about it and previewed the match on Saturday afternoon, but I never got a chance to talk about the finish of the match or the match itself until now. And I got to watch the whole thing, and that was so much flippin' fun. I mean, this is just a few days after Will Ospreay and Speedball Mike Bailey had another Match of the Year candidate in Impact, and now turning around, seeing the same thing in AEW and seeing the same thing from MJF. Now that he's a babyface, he's wrestling completely different. He's wrestling frequently, which he was not doing before, and even in the ring, he's not holding back. Before he was kind of holding back because he's a heel, not wanting to do dives and do anything dangerous. Now he's letting it all hang out. He's accepting all challengers. He's getting his Orange Cassidy on and just taking on everybody, wrestling on every single show imaginable, even in the opening segment of Dynamite. Not only did MJF have a match, a bloody match, for the Dynamite Diamond Ring, but in that segment and that whole entire opening of Dynamite, they set up 3 other matches for MJF at Full Gear, at this week's Dynamite, on Collision, and it was just like boom, boom, boom. So Max wrestling now at this level, and we get to see all of Max. Now we get to see what he can really do, because some of the stuff he was holding out on when he was a heel, he's not doing now. And I knew the match with Kenny Omega would be great, but we've also seen Kenny Omega in a lot of great matches. So I didn't think that, MJF and Kenny would be good, but would it be any better than Kenny and Danielson, Kenny and Hangman, even Kenny and Moxley? All those matches were good too. But I got to say, I dare say I like this one better than all of them, just because of, being able to see MJF, who we should give credit to for really, really improving since AEW formed 4 years ago. And my first experience with Maxwell was, who the hell is this Walmart Miz? I didn't even know what Burberry was. I'm like, what? Brown is ugly. Why is he wearing that brown scarf? I had no idea it was like a designer scarf. And I just thought he was a complete fucking joke, a Miz wannabe. And I got over that feeling in about a month, Because once I got to see him on the mic and stuff, like, oh yeah, he's so young. He's got so much potential. And watching him grow with each passing year in AEW, some of the big feuds, big rivalries he's already had with big names, these experience points that he's been getting, and now getting a run with the world title and having a match with Kenny Omega that will make MJF, should he win, the longest reigning AEW champion in history. That was just a lot of great stories surrounding the match on Saturday. And like I said, a lot of fans were complaining about the lack of build. There are times when it's appropriate to complain about that stuff, and when there are times when there are not. This was not one of them. In order to reference or acknowledge in any way Kenny Omega's world title run, you have to get that match done on Collision. That was their only time to do it. And a lot of fans were like, what, no build? I'm like, well, he's not in a feud with this guy. They're giving us this match as a specialty. This is kind of like a bonus type of thing. It doesn't really need much of a story. The streak is the story. You know, back in the day, sometimes WWE champions would just have a title defense against somebody they're not even feuding with. Not uncommon in any way at all. There's been plenty of times on Raw or SmackDown back in the Attitude Era where The Rock would just defend the title against somebody, or Austin would do the same thing, not feuding with him, not anything, but they just have a match. Sometimes you do that. You don't always need 6 months of build. And with Kenny and MJF, you know, especially after what we saw on Saturday, a chance to revisit this down the line, then you'll have your opportunity to tell your story and have a big build and a significant build and all of that. This was just done because, number one, MJF has taken on all challengers. So believe it or not, it does play into the story that they're telling right now with MJF just being fearless and saying, bring it on, bitch. So that's the story, the fact that he's not backing down from anything. It's not like Kenny came out there, challenged him, and Max was like, oh, let's just do it in January. No, Max was the one that issued the challenge to him. So there's your story right there. It's explained for you. You don't need any further explanation on this. Now, later down the road, when MJF is not feuding with 19 other guys and he has time to give to Kenny, then they can have a full-blown rivalry. But this was just a little bonus match, and they tore the fucking house down. Exactly what Collision needed. You know, this is a match that show, I think, really needed to have, you know, because even in the early days of Rampage, we had that great Kenny Omega and Christian match. You know, CM Punk debuted on that show. Danielson, I think, in Omega wrestled, right? I mean, there's been some awesome matches in the early days of Rampage, and Collision needs some of these title defenses and these big-time matches under their belt as well. And when you look at all the matches throughout the year from both companies, you can lump them all together, or you can separate them. Best matches in WWE, best matches in AEW. I think this one's definitely going to be on there. And I loved that Kenny Omega put over MJF clean, and MJF hit the finisher there at the end to beat him. But that was after table dives, and the one-winged angel counter into the Poison Rana was one of the sickest, smoothest, cleanest counters to any move I've ever seen. Everything was just hitting, like they were just firing on all cylinders. It was just one of those things that, you know, they just click, all the moves click. Nothing felt clunky, botched, disorganized, nothing like that. It was like they've worked this match 100 times before. And you could tell even after the match when MJF pinned Kenny Omega, he stayed over him for a couple of seconds with his face right in Kenny's hair and his ear. And you can guarantee that MJF was like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. What an awesome match. Can't say enough good things about that Collision main event. And it's why I love wrestling. I had no issue whatsoever with the lack of build between MJF and Kenny. There are times to complain about that, and there are times where it's not appropriate and doesn't apply, and it certainly did not apply here. That was nothing but good. Complaining about getting an awesome kick-ass match of the year candidate on free TV instead of on a pay-per-view that you won't buy is a very strange thing to bitch about. That's all I'm going to say. But props to Kenny and MJF. What a match on on Collision. Dynamite, however, had a great main event as well with Danielson and Okada on opposite sides of teams. Danielson teamed up with Claudio to take on Okada and Orange Cassidy. And in that match, Danielson suffered yet another injury. Last time he was in the ring with Okada was at Forbidden Door, and he broke his arm. This time he broke his orbital bone. Now, we were doing a podcast on Saturday, and we talked about a Bryan Danielson injury update on Collision, but I wasn't really even aware that he was injured at all. Some fans said that they did notice him selling and being helped to the back, but it looked to be like a head thing. And I guess he cracked his orbital bone, which I've just never done that. I would just assume that fucking sucks. That bone is very, very strong. And if you're cracking that, you got to worry about concussion possibilities and things like that. So best wishes to Danielson. Hopefully he's able to heal and he can still hopefully work a Wrestle Kingdom match. I was really looking forward to that. Even last summer, you could kind of tell that provided everybody stays healthy, that's probably what they're going to do, Danielson and Okada at Wrestle Kingdom, especially since Danielson beat him in AEW's ring. You feel like that favor has to be repaid, and I really hope that it's able to happen. But the most important thing is the health of Bryan Danielson, because that's a gnarly injury. He's already had a career filled with gnarly injuries, and each one of these just, it makes you hurt to see Danielson wrestle sometimes because he just wrestles balls out. So I hope that he's able to recover from this and he can finish his career with as few more injuries as possible, because I want Bryan Danielson to live a long and happy life, and I want him to die when he's 90 years old. And I hope that he doesn't have any long-lasting effects from just the crazy style he's worked his whole life. So hopefully he'll be back. Sounds like likely he's going to be out for the rest of the year. Wrestle Kingdom is always, January 4th? Not likely. It's not looking likely unless he feels like he can do it. I don't know. I don't even know how you recover from something like that. Anybody ever had a broken orbital bone? Sounds like it sucks. So best wishes to Danielson. Undertaker famously had the orbital bone thing way back in WWE in like 95 when Mabel crushed his face and he had to wear that spooky ass mask. So it happens, and it sounds like it's a long recovery time when it does happen. So I'm just getting my chat back up. I lost the chat for a second. Sorry, guys. There we go. Yeah. Ooh. Might be breaking the record for our lowest chat audience of all time here. It doesn't make me feel very good, but I am happy that you guys are here. That's what's important. Let's talk about Drew McIntyre. Still a lot of talk about Drew McIntyre and whether or not he has signed a WWE contract or not. Now, sounds like he still has not, even though there's been some rumors alluding to that fact. Fightful had a write-up on this today. Here's what they had to say. Recently, Fightful had reported that many WWE top stars whose contracts are expiring in 2024 have yet to be approached by WWE. We can't say that he's not been approached, but as of now, we're told that Drew McIntyre has not signed a new WWE contract. There had been some Twitter rumors indicating he had re-signed, but according to what he and WWE have told people, that's not true. We'll likely be updating this repeatedly as the process goes on, as Drew McIntyre is the first major domino that could fall in the TKO era of re-signing major talent to WWE deals. Drew McIntyre has less than 5 months left on his WWE deal, and it's actually up ahead of next year's WrestleMania. Other talent, namely Becky Lynch, have deals up in 2024 as well. And there were a couple of stories floating around this week about some of these contracts and how some of these expiring deals, the talent hasn't been approached. So we don't know how TKO is going to even handle contract negotiations. Are they going to be spending more money, less money? Are they more likely to be willing to let people go? I don't know how all of this works. Obviously, this is not Triple H. I don't think he's head of talent relations. I think that's a Bruce deal. So there's other people kind of handling that stuff, but you would still think that Triple H, would have a say, tell the people, do whatever you can to sign him, or whatever. I don't know how all of that works and what sort of limits are going to be placed on the people that used to do these negotiations, and, if they're able to, how you're able to get approved for a certain amount of money. I don't know how any of this shit works. So maybe with the merger, this could be good news for someone like Tony Khan, who now is, doesn't have to worry about that type of stuff. He can just spend whatever he wants. So maybe this is a chance if TKO has limits to what they're willing to spend on a talent, which is weird considering, how much money they are making, that perhaps a lot of these expiring contracts and these talents with deals coming up, they're going to probably want to hear what they can get from the other side, you would think. I mean, if you are somebody in either company for that matter, up for renewal, it would be like, if I re-sign with you, if I re-up with you without even hearing the other side, you better damn sure make it worth it for me. Otherwise, I want to, see what I can get from, my competitor, what kind of deal I'm going to get so I can weigh my options type of thing. But it might be more than just money. Some talent, it's all about money. Some talent, it's about schedule. Sometimes it's about family life. Becky Lynch, I don't think she'd be going to AEW and just leave Seth Rollins behind, so if she left, I feel like they both leave. So you never know what decision or what the motivation is for wrestlers whose contracts are coming up, depending on what they're looking to do with their lives, what stage of career they're in, if they haven't gotten their big money deal yet and Tony Khan's willing to give it to them, all that stuff. But I will say this, based on the vignette that we saw tonight from Drew McIntyre, and he's got his big title match against Seth Rollins this Saturday at Crown Jewel, and Drew, revisiting the Performance Center in that vignette, talking about how he won the WWE title there, the most important night of his career, and he won it in front of nobody. He had the biggest run of his career at the worst time in the world, and what was going on. One of the worst times in history was when he was on top. And still, you can tell there's a lot of regret there. I would have a lot of regret if I was in Drew McIntyre's shoes, and I had to win the title. That was so awkward. I don't like thinking about the year of 2020 in terms of wrestling. I will never watch a show from that year again. None of them. Thunderdome, none of that shit. It just depresses me to even think about, and thinking back to McIntyre that night winning the title from Brock to crickets. Like, it would be like the two of them having this match right here next to me right now. It was just crazy. And that's just got to be, even though it's nobody's fault, it's got to be so frustrating, Drew. It's not WWE's fault that happened. It's just, if you're Drew, God, I would have loved to have that in a stadium. So if he were to go to AEW and he were to listen to their offer, decide that he's going to sign with them, based on who we know Tony Khan to be, I guarantee you Tony Khan will give Drew McIntyre a stadium championship victory. He did what he did for Saraya at All In. He'd probably do that for McIntyre next year when they go back to Wembley. But McIntyre's got to be over. If they want to put 90,000 in that building or 80,000 or whatever it is again, they got to make sure that they got wrestlers that people want to see. And McIntyre going to AEW might be great and cool and everything, but is it drawing 70, 80,000 people cool? I don't know. So it just depends on when he gets there. But if he does go there, I would hate for it to be forced. Tony Khan is, kind of a mark, that can be a benefit in some areas, and that can also, hurt your company too. But Tony Khan might want to give that to Drew McIntyre. Hey, I can give you that. I can give you that stadium win. Now, McIntyre's got a chance to do the stadium win against Rollins on Saturday, but if he's not signed a contract, I think it's pretty unlikely he's going to be winning that championship. So we will see. With McIntyre, I'm kind of cool either way. I feel like he's a lot like Will Ospreay. Like, I'm cool with whatever he decides because I think he's going to be great in either company. Will Ospreay and WWE would be fantastic, but I think he's likely going to be signing with AEW. Drew McIntyre, if I was him, I would probably want to stay in WWE just for the exposure and who you are, not having to change your name again, and you've already, created a legacy there, Hall of Fame in your future, that type of thing. Or he might want to do what Edge did, or he might want to do what he did previously when he left and, built himself up, even though I already think he's a main eventer. So he might want to go to AEW as a former world champion veteran that can contribute. That's why Adam Copeland said he went there. He wanted to contribute, wanted to help, so maybe McIntyre sees that place as an opportunity where he can go and, and be a leader and mentor and things like that. But I can also see him staying in WWE, how that could be equally as attractive. So with McIntyre, I'm kind of cool either way. I think it would be awesome and surreal because I love when people jump ship, regardless of which side they're going to. I don't care if they go from AEW to WWE or vice versa. I like it when it happens. Very cool seeing Cody and Jade Cargill in WWE, and it's cool to see Adam Copeland in AEW. It would be cool to see Drew Galloway there. Drew Galloway, that's what he would be, right? If he went to AEW. So we will see what the future holds for McIntyre. We just wish him the best. I'm a big McIntyre fan. I've always liked him. So wherever he decides to go, best of luck to him. And I'm curious, other than Becky Lynch, who some of those other names are whose contracts are coming up in 2024, because there's some of those names I'm sure WWE is not going to want to let go. So hopefully they retain their services, and we don't have to worry about Kevin Owens or Sami Zayn or Lynch or Rollins or any of those guys leaving right now. And speaking of AEW, there have been some talks about some backstage creative frustrations, and this was coming from Meltzer this week in The Observer. Now, these transcripts come from Wrestle Talk. Here's what Meltzer had to say about some of the backstage creative issues going on in AEW right now. And I quote, if you follow AEW, you know that a lot of the stuff is being decided at much later periods than previous. Guys are getting their information on what they're doing later, and decisions are being made later. I'm assuming that means, later in the day or later in the week. There's times the day of the show, sometimes you don't even know what the plans are yet. It's almost at times like we used to hear to talk about WWE, which is also very frustrating for talent. A lot of guys have a lot of input on what they're doing, but they don't really know a long-term direction. And you can definitely see that on TV. They're doing stuff and they're coming up with ideas, but when you don't really know exactly a long-term direction, you're kind of coming up with ideas week by week, but you don't know where the ultimate thing is, and maybe the ultimate thing hasn't even been decided. So that's one of the reasons that the shows are the way they are. Now, that's kind of common. We've heard that in WWE, especially when Vince was there throughout the years of, sometimes they're 30 minutes from Showtime, and Vince is tearing scripts up and changing matches, and it's all disorganized. That was WCW's big problem, is you would be showing up at the show and you have a match later that night. The show's already started and you still don't know who you're wrestling. Creative confusion, chaos, things like that have been an issue in all companies. It's a shame to hear that they kind of happen in AEW as well. AEW, I still think, is better at kind of booking their matches far out. You generally know what you're going to do next week. They generally give you the lineup for the following week's Dynamite every Wednesday, so you have an idea of where they're going. But in terms of the long-term direction, that makes sense, because a lot of times as fans, we can't tell what the hell the long-term direction is in some of these AEW storylines either. Now, Jerry Lynn responded to this with a tweet that said, because wrestlers and God knows who else because wrestlers and God knows who else have and continue to leak info to the sheets, podcasts, etc. So Tony tries to keep things confidential. You wouldn't want to know everything before you see a movie. Anyone who links info is doing damage to the product and the industry. So that's Jerry Lynn's excuse for that. I think that might be part of it, but I think part of it is also there probably is just some creative confusion back there. I don't think that the entire reason why you're not hearing about what you're doing until very late is because Tony is worried about leaks, but it probably is a small part of it. But in terms of the leaks, what do we really get? What kind of leaks do we really get spoiled to us, other than, returns and things like that, in terms of what we're going to see on the show, angles and whatnot? I guess I'm just not at a point in my fandom where getting spoiled by that bothers me. If I read an article or a headline from Fightful Select, plans for Dynamite tonight, I'll click on it and read it. I don't care. So you do have the option not to read it. But I guess, some people do not like it when people in the business talk to the sheets and whatnot. And there are a lot of sources to a lot of different websites out there that might hear something and relay it, and then they print it and it causes confusion. Who knows? But you don't like to hear stuff like that, because we know what a problem that was in WWE. When WWE had these problems, they were at their creative worst. Nothing they were doing was hitting. It was almost frustrating to watch their product. And I certainly don't want that to happen to AEW. I have my criticisms of AEW and the creative certainly pretty frequently from time to time, but they're not pissing me off the way WWE did several years ago with that stuff. So let's hope this doesn't get worse. And I still think that, without knowing much about the backstage infrastructure in AEW, we know some of the people that work there, but we don't totally know what all of their jobs are. All we know is Tony Khan has a lot of jobs, and I think Tony Khan needs as much help as possible organizing things and pulling things together. So let's just hope that these issues don't persist, and more importantly, these issues don't get worse, because that's the last thing AEW needs right now, especially when you have a competitor that's just hitting. But ideally for the fans, you want them both kicking ass, and we've experienced that in the last couple of years, both companies really delivering great shit. But lately, AEW maybe has dropped a peg or two, And that's not what you want if you're on the AEW side of things, especially when you see WWE doing crazy business and we're on the doorstep of their WrestleMania season again, which is just going to be even more crazy for that company. But anyway, those are the only wrestling news tidbits I wanted to get into before we ran through these Raw results. Let me knock out the super chat from Abusika. Thank you. Welcome back. Appreciate the $2. Where on earth has Samantha Irving been? Did I miss? She wasn't on the show tonight, right? They had the NXT girl doing the announcing. So I don't know where Samantha was. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, I guess she was not on the show. Ricochet was there. So maybe Samantha was just off this week. But we should talk about Raw. Now, I got a late start on Raw because I was a guest over on my buddy Zach's channel with Tomas. We reviewed Halloween Havoc 1998. If you want a link to that, best place to find that would be over on my Twitters. I've got it up there. We talked about 1998 today. It ran long. I got a late start getting my shit together here, so I kind of got into Raw just a few minutes late, right as Sami Zayn was cutting his fire promo on the Judgment Day, getting very, very heated and very passionate. I mean, without me looking too far into it, it feels like Sami Zayn was drawing from world events, you know, and to inspire him in this promo. It feels like he was drawing inspiration from that, really, with his passion and what he was saying. It was awesome. Love Sami Zayn talking about the power that Judgment Day is after and whatnot. And, you know, of course, that's going to lead to a brawl. Ricochet comes out to make the save. They go to commercial, and Ricochet has his scheduled and advertised match with Dominic up first. So this was pretty fun. Ricochet and Dominic. Dominic got the win with a handful of tights. He had JD McDonough and Rhea Ripley at ringside, and they interfered. So the story has always been, but really tonight they were really hammering it home with Judgment Day, that when you fight one, you fight them all. And sometimes you fight guys that aren't even in the fucking faction, like JD McDonough. So Ricochet took an L there from Dom, but of course, Dom had all sorts of help from JD and his mommy, and Dominic will be defending his North American title tomorrow at Halloween Havoc Night 2 on Halloween. So Dom will probably retain that. I can't see him losing that tomorrow. One of the best matches on the show, maybe just slightly outdone by Rollins. Maybe not. This was all kinds of fun. The Alpha Academy, they issued kind of like an Alpha Open Challenge or something like that last week. It was answered by the Creed brothers from NXT, who have been down there for a couple of years now, kicking ass. And these guys are great. Very, very Steiner brother-ish with their tag team wrestling. And this was a great showcase for them. I loved the 450 moonsault spot. 450 first, and then Chad Gable comes over and moonsaults on top. All four men piled on top in the middle of the ring. That was great. Maxine and Ivy Nile got into it. And the Creed brothers would get the win here using their Brutus ball finisher for the win. Very LOD and Steiner-like top rope tandem move there for the win, beating Alpha Academy. Alpha Academy showed them respect after the match. And my God, you put one of these Creed brothers and Gable in a singles program. My God. But I don't know if this is an actual call-up for them or if they are just kind of getting a little sniff of Raw before they move them up. But we talked about the Tag Team Championship belts last week, how there were some rumors of WWE screen testing and photo testing some new sets of Tag Team Championship belts. And we heard that there were two sets made, one with a black strap and one with a red and blue strap. And I had theorized that perhaps maybe one of these were for the women, and they're still going to keep the one set of tag team titles. I would love if the red and blue straps went to the women. If they just redesigned the women's belts and they had a combination red and blue, and then you gave the men the black ones. But that was what I wanted in a perfect world. But right now, as much as I've advocated against having two sets of tag team championships, I feel like right now, if there's ever been a time where the tag team division could support two championships, it's right now, because they're really establishing a lot of teams. Tag team wrestling is not a weak spot in WWE right now. It's as good as it's been in years. I mean, in a lot of years since they've had a division, I think this strong with so much promising teams and so much potential in NXT that you can move up. So as much as I don't want two sets of tag team championship belts, that might be what's best, is to split them back up. So at some point with the Judgment Day or whoever they drop the belts to, maybe that's when you ununify them or create new belts or whatever. But I still think it would be great if you gave the red and blue ones to the women and gave the men new title designs and just had the one championship that could float between both shows. That's still what I want. But I guess if I don't get what I want and they give us two belts again, at least we have enough teams right now and the belts won't be that much of a joke. But I think the belts hold way more value when there's only one set of men's tag team champions on the two brands total. What'd you guys think about Miz TV tonight? Miz TV, his guest is going to be Gunther. And there were rumors earlier on in the day that we could be getting a babyface run by The Miz, which does not excite me at all because we've seen them try to do this with The Miz before. He's tried to be a face. They hitched him to Ric Flair one time. He's had his moments and stuff in the ring and on the mic, but I think it's pretty safe to say he is a natural heel. He slid out of the womb as a heel. That guy is a fucking heel. And when you try to make him a babyface, it's rarely worked. So now he's going to have Gunther on his show. And of course, he introduces Gunther. Gunther doesn't come out. Ludwig Kaiser and Vinci come out instead. And Ludwig says, the ring general is not going to come out just because you say so and all that shit. And then he introduces Gunther instead. Gunther comes in. He runs down The Miz, insults him, and says, what are you going to do about it? And The Miz winds up beating up and disposing of Vinci and Kaiser, only to be taken out by Gunther. And he tries to fight back, but they basically whip his ass and they send him out of the ring. And he's kind of like walking away, pouting almost. Like just totally like he's kind of turning face here, but he's running away. I mean, you kind of have to. It's all three guys, all three members of Imperium. But what was interesting is as he's walking away, we get brand new theme music from DIY, who's making their return and teaming together for the first time in like 4 years on Raw to take on Imperium, who's already in the ring. So coming out to the ring, you would think Miz has some backup. As a matter of fact, he just had a thing with Tommaso Ciampa not that long ago. I thought he was going to kind of turn around and walk to the ring with DIY, but he just walked right past him, didn't even acknowledge him, and they came to the ring then to take on Imperium. And this was not going to be, this wasn't a surprise, I should say. Obviously, DIY is not going to team back up for the first time in 4 years and lose. So obviously they were going to beat Imperium here. Pretty fun little match. Kind of crazy and surreal and awesome to see DIY in teaming together on the same page on the main roster, doing the thing and and all that shit, man. That's awesome. And of course they did win here. They hit their double knee finisher thing, whatever that's called, on one of them. I think it was on Vinci for the win, and DIY is back. And I'll tell you, if they were going to do some sort of championship belt redesign or presentation, I would love it if DIY was the team that got the belts. Their Triple H really likes them. If they were to beat Judgment Day in a match and win the championships the following week, I would love for Triple H to unveil new title belts for them. We will see. But DIY back together, I think they absolutely have to win the tag team championships. Absolutely. So that might be another thing they do if Triple H or WWE announces that there's going to be, like, maybe they're not going to ununify the belts. That might be what the belts are for, as a matter of fact, now that I think about it. Maybe that red and blue strap belts, those are going to be the belts that Priest and Balor currently hold. Those 4 belts are going to be merged into one set of tag team championships, and that's what the red and blue straps represent. Then, instead of ununifying the belts that we have now, they just create a new championship belt, just kind of how like they renamed the Women's World Championship and all of that. They'll just do that maybe for the tags, and they will unveil new World Tag Team Championships. I know we've already had those that have already been merged and all that shit. The title history is a mess. Tag team title history is a mess in WWE. But maybe the 4 current belts that are currently unified, unify those permanently, create new red and blue championship belts, which we heard they screen tested for, and then create new tag team titles and perhaps hold a tournament for those new tag team titles, which I think DIY would be an excellent candidate to win those. So maybe that's what they're doing with those belts. It took me almost 2 weeks to sort that belt shit out in my head. But that sounds likely. I could tell that sounds more likely than giving one to the women or anything else that I've talked about. It sounds like the red and blue straps could be the permanent unification of the belts we already have, and them creating a brand new set of tag team championships, of which DIY could be the inaugural winners of, which would look great in your title history. To have Gargano and Ciampa have a really nice feather in their cap to be the first person to hold that. That wouldn't be bad. I'd be in favor of that. So that's what I vote for if we are, in fact, getting 2 sets of tag team championships in the future. Now, Johnny Wrestling's wife, not Candice Michelle, but Candice LeRae, took on Xia Li next. Prior to the match, Michael Cole calls her Candice Michelle, and then they cut to a video package. And when they come back, he knows it. He owns up to it. He even tells Barrett, all right, go ahead and give it to me. You fucking idiot, it's Candice LeRae. So they gave Cole all kinds of hell for that. I kind of like that they poked fun at him for that, because you have to laugh stuff like that off. I've called AEW TNA before. Like, sometimes you just have a brain fart. Not a big deal. I do it 65 fucking times in every podcast. So Michael Cole accidentally calls Candice LeRae Candice Michelle, and then Wade Barrett goes, get your mind out of 2008 or whatever he said. Pretty funny stuff. And Cole acknowledged the flub. Barrett ribbed him for it. It's all part of the fun. And Candice said, hey, I got Candice Michelle trending on Twitter tonight. So whatever Candice Michelle is doing these days, hope you're doing well, and congrats on trending on Twitter tonight. This match, though, what were they doing? I don't know what they were doing. So, like, Candice gets in the ring. She's fighting Xia Li, who I love, and I've been wondering why she's been sitting there doing nothing for years. How long has she been in the company now? 4 years, something like that? She's done absolute dick. I think she's tremendous. She's just such a little pit bull, and she's in great shape. She's hot, and she can kick your ass. I always thought that they should utilize her in a similar way to Asuka. You know, just have her kind of be feared and just have her be an ass kicker, because she really is a physical wrestler. And I like her. I've liked her the whole time, and they've never done shit with her. And finally, you know, even recently, like last year, she was doing the entrance with the lightning bolts out of her hands. I'm like, lightning bolts don't do anything. Like, push this girl. So finally, now she's being featured on TV. We're starting to see her more. Becky Lynch no longer has a championship for her to challenge for her, and Becky had a little thing backstage on the show as well. So I guess maybe the idea here is what I was talking about, to kind of make her a scary, feared wrestler, because the finish they went in this match was kind of like a ref stoppage, but man, it was bad. It was just all kinds of bad. Candice LeRae just takes a kick, just like a side kick from Xia Li. But it was kind of a glancing blow. It was a worked kick. You know, Candice was very protected. Nothing wrong with that. But if you want to sell the kick as a knockout blow, something that concusses you, it needs to look a little bit better than that. I mean, I'm glad that we didn't have to wonder if it was a work or not, because if it did look good, you know, we might be worried if Candice really did get hurt. And what made you think that it might be real is because of the confusion that appeared to be in the ring. You know, unless when Candice fell backwards, she hit the back of her head or something, but there's no way this was legit, because of course they even cut back to her backstage later. But she falls, she tries to get to her feet, she keeps kind of falling back down, she can't get up. Indy Hartwell's out there, very concerned. Referee checks on her. Candice tries to get up again, falls back on her ass, and then the referee just stops the match. And that, in the idea of that, I don't mind. Like, I'm cool with Xia Li going out there and just knocking out her opponents and winning via ref stoppage in every match, but it needs to look better than this, and it needs to be executed better, because the crowd didn't know what was going on. The crowd seemed confused, and I don't think it did its job of putting over Xia Li as a scary, dangerous woman to be in the ring with, because of the way it was executed. So none of that was really good to me. But if they do want Xia Li to go out there and have matches and just knock a bitch's head off and then just win by ref stoppage, I'm cool with that, but just do it better. Do it better than that. And after the break, they came back, they cut to the back. Candice LeRae is being checked on by the doctors. She's doing a great job of kind of looking out of it. She really does. Her eyes look glazed over, but they're doing the finger thing. None of this shit would be on camera if it was legit. So Candice is fine, but I don't know. It was just a little bit odd. So we're probably going to get a return match on that one, probably next Monday or whenever Candace is back from her fake concussion. JJ, so the undisputed tag titles for SmackDown and World Tags for Raw, that's a good point. I don't know. I don't know where you'd put one, if you've unified the two. That's why I think it would be better if there's just one championship, but not sure how that's going to work. Denny Downbad, not going to lie, Def Rebel is not it when it comes to these themes. Triple H needs to call Jim Johnson or CFOs back. Is Def Rebel, is that the name of who does their songs now? I didn't even know that. But I thought CFOs were good because nothing after Jim Johnson left, everything was just shit. And it went through this dead period of themes that I just didn't care for. And then the CFOs produced a lot of great ones, Nakamura and Bobby Roode and so many others that just slapped. Is that what the kids say today? Slapped? They slapped. So whoever's doing them now, it isn't good. I couldn't even get a read on the DIY theme based on what I heard tonight. Carlito's theme hasn't been getting good reviews from fans either. What's another new one lately that we've heard? But it would be great to get the CFOs back. But that relationship, I don't remember the details, but I don't think it ended great because they were even trying to get rid of all their songs and shit. I don't know. But yeah, the theme music needs some work. Barry says the Money in the Bank matches and the Inferno match from 2020 is still fun to watch. I just can't. Even if there was good matches, and there were good in-ring matches and good matches in general in that time period, but I still can't watch it. I just can't. The pandemic, I just fucking hated it. Depressing to even think about. But anyway, where'd we leave off though? So yeah, then we went to that Drew video package where he revisited the PC and talked about all that stuff. And he's got a shot at the title, of course, on Saturday against Seth Rollins. And then we get a great match between Seth Rollins and JD McDonough. This thing was a lot of fun. And of course, Rollins is out there against all odds against the Judgment Day, who have, was Dominic out there? Were they all out there? Or was it just Priest? Because I know Priest was out there with the briefcase kind of threatening to cash in, but Seth Rollins was able to overcome all of that, nail McDonough with the stomp for the win, stare down with Priest at the end, and we will see Priest, if he cashes in or tries to at Crown Jewel, he's going to have to face a very angry Cody Rhodes first, and then if Seth Rollins can survive Drew, we will see. I do believe that Damian Priest will successfully cash in. I feel like he will. I don't feel like he's going to fail. I think he'll get it. I just don't know if it'll be at Crown Jewel or not. It might be. I will be predicting Crown Jewel on Thursday, by the way. The link is up on the channel right now. Chelsea Green and Piper Niven win the Halloween contest this year as they dressed as the Hart Foundation. Chelsea was Brett and Piper was Anvil. And Piper Niven had like patches of hair on her chest. It looked great. And they were talking to Adam Pearce backstage. And of course, Chelsea had her trick or street match with Natalya, who came out dressed as a bunny or something. This thing had everything bobbing for apples. Chelsea got dunked in the water. And there was a table out there with a bunch of pumpkins on it. 3 pumpkins with a big one in the middle. And Chelsea Green picks up the big one to reveal Nikki Cross's head just sitting there staring in the same way she was staring last week, just dead into the camera, not moving, not saying anything. I'm surprised she was not cracking up under there because it was pretty funny. Chelsea freaks out. She drops the pumpkin on her head. She stumbles all around and trips over. And Natalya... Or no, she ends up winning. That's right. She winds up winning the match because Piper takes a pie to the face and from Natalya, allowing Chelsea and that distraction to grab Natalya in the unpretty her and hit her with that for the win. And Chelsea picks up a big win in the Trick or Street fight match, which was really fun. And I loved how Chelsea and Piper looked. They looked great. Chelsea had her hair kind of curly. She looked like, you know who she looked like? She looked like the aunt in Family Matters. You know what I'm talking about? The cast, I don't know what her name in the show was. She kind of looked like her with that curly hair. When I saw her face, it just reminded me of that. So anyway, I thought their Halloween costume was Awesome. And then after that, really fun match between Sami Zayn and Damian Priest. Loving this fire, this fire that's burning inside of Sami Zayn. Hard fought match here, but again, like the story has been all night, Zayn has a numbers game against him with members of the Judgment Day out there. And Jey Uso came up there to even up the odds, but got a little bit excited and cracked Damian Priest with the chair. And the referee's like, well, ding, ding, ding. Match is over. Disqualification. He cost Sami the match, but not a big deal. The brawl continues. And that's when Cody Rhodes' music hits. We haven't seen him all night. Of course, he got worked over pretty good last week with the chair by Damian Priest and Judgment Day. He comes out limping, goes right for Priest and attacks him. Judgment Day retreats. They get the hell out of Dodge, leaving poor JD McDonough all by himself. And Cody Rhodes grabs him and hits a crossroads on the announce table. And then the fans start chanting one more time, picks him up and hits him with a second crossroads on the table. Sami Zayn's loving it. Cody then gets on the mic and cuts a scathing promo on Damian Priest. So maybe the story they're telling here, you know how I talked about Damian Priest winning the championship or cashing in the briefcase. If the plan is to do that, but maybe they don't want to do it here at Crown Jewel, like I said on the last show, when Seth had the last man standing match, I said something is going to have to happen to Priest, because that's probably good. That if that match comes after, or it doesn't matter when it comes, something is going to have to happen to Damian Priest, because if he's a Money in the Bank briefcase holder and he just watches two guys and the champion have a last man standing match, what the hell is his justification going to be for not cashing in? They're going to need to do something about that. And they did. Rhea Ripley took the briefcase from him, remember? So now it's the same thing. So if, Seth Rollins, if he beats McIntyre, he's going to be not 100%. That's going to be a pretty hard fought match, especially if you were to tie in a Drew McIntyre heel turn. Because let's say, for example, WWE feels like Drew McIntyre is not going to re-sign his contract. So what you do here is you have Seth beat him, and then he snaps. He turns heel. He fucks Seth up, puts him through every table on the outside of the ring, and stomps off. And then Damian Priest comes right out, cashes in on Seth Rollins, wins the world championship, but now he gets to have that title run because Seth is going to have a bigger motivation to get revenge on Damian Priest. We've seen this happen a bunch of times throughout history when you want to pass the belt to somebody else, and you don't want to have immediate rematches with the former champion. This is a way to do it. Seth can focus all of his energy now. He'll come out on the Raw. Priest, don't you worry. I'll be coming for you. But first, I need Drew McIntyre. And it can be all about that. And they can give McIntyre and Seth a little program here where Seth maybe jobs out McIntyre, because if his contract is up before WrestleMania, you might as well just wrap him up at the beginning of the year or the end of the year of this year and just wrap it up with him and then keep him off TV until he either resigns or whatever. So if he costs Rollins the match, or I'm sorry, he loses to Rollins, but then costs Rollins the title, Damian Priest cashes in, then Rollins and McIntyre can just have a feud, while Priest is now the new World Heavyweight Champion and can maybe work with somebody completely new, or he's probably going to be in the War Games match at Survivor Series. And then Rollins and McIntyre can have their gimmick matches, their last man standing matches, their loser leaves town match. Haven't seen one of those in a while. Loser leaves town match. Royal Rumble or December pay-per-view or whatever. Rollins, McIntyre, loser leaves WWE. Maybe that's what they do. So my point was, if Priest isn't going to cash in at Crown Jewel, even if there isn't a heel turn from McIntyre, even if he just loses to Seth, Priest is going to either have to have already been injured in his match or just had his match to where it wouldn't really be an advantage for him to come and cash in on Seth Rollins because he's beat up too. So there's got to be a good reason for him not to cash in if he's not going to cash in. If Priest is seemingly healthy and in the building and nothing's wrong with him, then Seth Rollins is decimated by Drew McIntyre. Or if the two of them decimate each other what is stopping him from either making it a triple threat or cashing in on the winner or whatever? I feel like, maybe that's something that's possible too. Perhaps McIntyre wins the title and then loses it to a cashing in Priest, because they've been playing into the frustrations of McIntyre with the championship, his first run, how he had the title, most important night of his life, but the pandemic took it away from him. They took away the specialness of that. Here he has it again. He wins the world championship on a big show, and he can't even celebrate because the Money in the Bank winner comes in and cashes in on him. Maybe that's what they do. But that doesn't sound likely. I like the first option of Drew just going heel, destroying Seth Rollins. Priest comes in, easily is able to cash in and win the title, and then you can move on to a McIntyre and Rollins feud that will write McIntyre out of the WWE. Just an idea. Just an idea. What do y'all think about all that jazz? That's the end. That was the last match, right? Yeah, that was the last match on Raw. Aunt Rachel, there you go. What was the Monday night game tonight, by the way? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the LA, Michael says the LA night theme is good. It is. I like the LA night theme. And they don't have bad themes. Something I like Roman's theme. There's a lot of themes I do like, but I feel like the CFOs, it just felt like they were hitting on everything, like everything they were making, even though a lot of them were short and repetitive, like, Finn Balor and, and even Bobby Roode. It was basically just kind of one verse, just looped, but they were good. They were good. And they did a good job of kind of making who's coming out. Like from the first note in the song, when it hits, who it is. AEW does a really good job with that right now. I think their theme music is not a weak point in the company. They actually do that really well. Number one, Tony Khan's willing to pay for things, and some of their own other homegrown themes are actually really good. It's better than what WCW was, I think, in the 90s. So AEW, for the problems they may have in the company, theme music isn't one of them. They got a pretty good hold on that. And WWE's music isn't bad either. It's just feels like it was better maybe 8 years ago or whatever. So anywho, but I think that's going to do it for tonight. Kind of an off night here. One of our lowest attended streams, but it wasn't really a big deal tonight on Raw. It was just your run-of-the-mill show. And it is the go home to Crown Jewel. But, we weren't expecting anything too crazy to happen on the show. It was just going to be the continuation of the ongoing stories. And that's what we saw. And it was still really fun. Good wrestling, good matches, fun moments. It's what wrestling should be. And it's nice to watch Monday Night Raw and not feel like it's a chore. Because it used to feel that way. Back in the day when we used to watch it together, I do the watch-alongs back in like 2019 and 2018. I just did it because it sucked to watch it by myself. So if I'm going to suffer, y'all are going to suffer with me. Now, it's not like that. I actually, for the most part, really enjoy Monday Night Raw in 2023, and I'm just really happy that I'm able to say that. So anyway, I hope you guys have a good rest of your Monday night. Don't forget to join us this Thursday. We will be live at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific to do Crown Jewel predictions, and we will touch on whatever we see on Dynamite on Wednesday and any other wrestling news that we need to get into. We'll touch on that as well. If you don't mind, hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Please subscribe. If you are not, we are really close to 40,000 subscribers. We will be there soon. So if you give me those likes and subs, I would be appreciative. You guys have a great rest of your evening. I will catch you on Thursday unless something earth-shattering happens in the business in the next couple of days. We'll come up here for a mic drop. Otherwise, Thursday will be